She carried adoption papers just to walk her daughter home, and still, someone called the cops. It started with laughter, not the kind you hear at a party or on a sitcom, but the kind that bubbles out from a place of joy so simple it doesn't even know it's precious yet. Denise Walker sat on an old plaid blanket at Nash Square Park in Raleigh, brushing cracker crumbs off her jeans while her daughter tried to feed what was left of her sandwich to a squirrel. The squirrel wasn't shy. It darted up, snagged the crust, and shot off again like it had pulled off a heist. "Mom, he really took it." Denise grinned, tossing her head back with a soft chuckle. "Well, baby, you offered it to him. He just has good taste." The little girl giggled harder. Her bright blonde hair fell in wisps around her cheeks, her knees grass-stained, her eyes wide with 6-year-old wonder. Her name was Lily Walker, and though no one would guess it from the outside, she was Denise's daughter through and through. From the way she scrunched her nose when she was thinking, to the way she'd instinctively reach for Denise's hand every time a dog barked too close. They were a pair. They'd spent the morning drawing sidewalk chalk animals near the fountain, then shared turkey sandwiches and apple slices under the wide old trees. It had been a good day, one of the good ones, the kind Denise tried to memorize as they happened. "All right, come on, kiddo," she said, starting to fold up the blanket. "Time to head home and get cleaned up before dinner. Can I carry the basket?" Denise handed her the lightweight woven tote and ruffled her hair. "You got it, helper." They took the long way back through the neighborhood, walking past rows of neatly trimmed lawns and driveways with basketball hoops and front porch flags. A warm breeze fluttered through the branches overhead. The sun was dipping just low enough to make everything golden. They looked like any mother and daughter heading home from the park. But Denise had learned a long time ago, what things look like doesn't always match what people choose to see. As they strolled past the corner house with the big camellia bush out front, Lily skipped ahead a few steps and turned, walking backward like she was on stage. "I'm going to ask Miss Carmen if I can play with Riley tomorrow." "Only after you clean your room?" Denise replied with a wink. "I will, I promise. Cross my heart and all that." We'll see." They were still laughing when they passed a small white house with blue shutters and a wreath on the door that hadn't been changed since Easter. Denise noticed movement from the corner of her eye, someone standing behind the living room window, barely visible behind the curtain. Watching. She didn't think anything of it at first. People look. That's just life. Especially in neighborhoods where people feel like they own the street just because their name's on the mailbox. But this particular set of eyes followed them a little longer than usual. The woman behind the curtain stepped out onto the porch. Her face was blank at first, then squinted slightly. Denise kept walking. She could feel it, though, that stare, that weight. It's something you learn to pick up on when you've had to carry it your whole life. It sticks to your skin, even when you try to shake it off. Still, she kept her voice calm, her body loose. Lily didn't notice a thing. They rounded the corner just a block from home, but behind them, Susan Whitmore was dialing 911. "There's a little girl with a woman who doesn't look like her. She seems nervous." No, I don't know them personally, but something just feels off." Denise didn't know it yet, but her peaceful day at the park was about to become a headline. But something was coming, fast, and it wasn't just sirens. Susan Whitmore stood on her front porch like it was a guard post, one hand on her hip, the other clutching her phone a little too tight. Her tone wasn't frantic. It wasn't even loud. It was calm, controlled. And that's what made it worse. "Yes, I said it's a little girl, maybe 5 or 6. She's white, and the woman walking with her, well, she's not." There was a pause as the dispatcher asked a question. "I'm not sure what she's wearing. Jeans, I think? Look, she was walking kind of fast. It just felt off. I didn't want to assume anything, but what if it's serious?" She used words like, just being cautious and, God forbid something's actually wrong. But she already knew what she was doing. Susan didn't know Denise. She'd seen her a few times, usually from a distance, but in her mind, people like Denise didn't belong in homes like theirs, walking down clean streets with little girls who didn't match. This wasn't about safety, not really. Inside her living room, the TV was playing a commercial on low volume. Something about car insurance. A mug of herbal tea sat half drunk on the table next to a copy of Better Homes and Gardens. Outside, the spring breeze made the wind chimes on the porch tinkle softly. Susan gave the dispatcher the intersection where she'd last seen them. Then she waited. Less than 5 minutes later, Denise and Lily were at the corner of Evergreen and Baywood. Just one more street and they'd be home. Lily had started humming something under her breath, some tune from a cartoon Denise couldn't quite place. Her little legs swung with each step like she was dancing. That's when the police cruiser turned the corner. Then another. Both cars pulled up and stopped just ahead of them, blocking the sidewalk like someone had drawn a line across the road that said, "You don't get to pass yet." Denise's heart thudded. Not panic, not fear, not yet. Just awareness. She reached down and gently took Lily's hand. "Stay close, okay?" she whispered. Two officers stepped out, one male, one female. Both looked serious, but not aggressive. Not yet. "Ma'am," the male officer called. His voice was professional, clipped. "Can we speak with you for a second?" Denise didn't flinch. She didn't step forward either. She kept her voice even. "Sure, what's going on?" "We got a call. Someone reported a possible child abduction in the area." He glanced at Lily, then back at Denise. "This your daughter?" Lily looked up at her mom, confused. "What does that mean?" Denise crouched down beside her. "It's okay, baby, just hold my hand, all right?" Then she stood up, reached into her tote bag calmly, and pulled out a thin, worn folder. She'd kept it with her ever since the adoption was finalized, because she knew. She knew how people could be. She handed it to the officer. "My name is Denise Walker. This is my daughter, Lily Walker. She's adopted. All the paperwork is in there, including my ID and her birth certificate." The officer opened the folder, flipped through it, cross-checked the name. The address matched the one on the report. The documents were real. Everything was in order. The silence stretched long. Lily squeezed her mom's hand tighter. The female officer leaned slightly toward her partner. "This doesn't feel like a real threat," she said quietly, but not quietly enough that Denise didn't catch it. Still, the male officer finished his check, looked up. "I appreciate your cooperation, ma'am. Sorry for the inconvenience." Inconvenience. Denise let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. Not relief, not yet. She looked directly at him. "Do I get to know who made the call?" He glanced away. "We're not allowed to give that information out." Denise nodded slowly. "Of course." Lily tugged at her mom's arm. "Can we go home now?" Denise crouched down and kissed the top of her head. "Yeah, baby, we're going." They turned to leave. Denise walked slower now, the weight heavier than the basket in her hand. She could feel eyes on her. Not the officers anymore. Somewhere else. Back at Susan's house, the curtain twitched. But Susan wasn't behind it anymore. She was pacing her kitchen, watching the scene on her Ring camera, hands shaking. Not with fear, but something more complicated. Recognition, memory, and a truth she thought she'd buried. But the footage from that camera wasn't staying buried, and neither was the past. The next morning, Denise sat at the kitchen table with a fresh cup of coffee that had long gone cold. The sun was pouring in through the window, but it didn't feel warm. Not after what happened. Lily was still asleep upstairs. Last night, Denise had told her that sometimes people just get confused and ask silly questions, that it wasn't Lily's fault, that everything was okay, but everything didn't feel okay. Denise stared at the wall for a long time before pulling out her phone. She wasn't big on social media, but her neighbor across the street, Monique, had texted her earlier. "Girl, check next door. Someone posted the footage. You're in it." Denise hesitated, then tapped the app. A few seconds later, there it was. The headline was casual. Something like, "Suspicious incident on Evergreen yesterday afternoon." But the video wasn't casual. It was clear. Denise and Lily walking peacefully. The police pulling up. Lily's confusion. Denise handing over her folder. All of it, caught from Susan's porch camera. No audio, but the visuals said enough. There were already over 200 comments. Some were supportive. "I saw her at the park all the time with that little girl. That's her mom." "I hate that she even had to carry around proof like that." But others weren't. "Maybe she's telling the truth, but it's still better to be safe than sorry." Something about that whole thing just felt off. Sorry, not sorry. Denise set the phone down. Her hands were shaking. Across the street, Monique came over without knocking. She never knocked, just barged in like sisters do. "You okay?" she asked, already pouring herself coffee. "I saw the whole thing. You handled it like a pro." Denise sighed. Yeah, well, I shouldn't have to be a pro at this. Monique sat down, lowered her voice. You know who called, right? Denise just looked at her. Susan, from the corner. Her doorbell caught the whole thing, which means she saw it, called the cops, and recorded it. She posted the clip herself. That stopped Denise. She what? Yep. And get this. Someone commented under the video asking her why she felt the need to post it, and she deleted the question. Denise shook her head slowly. What is wrong with people? Monique paused, squinting at her coffee like it might offer wisdom. You want to say something? Speak out? You should. People need to see this. I'm tired of being the example, Denise said quietly. I just want to be her mom. That silence hung heavy. Meanwhile, on the other side of the neighborhood, Susan sat on her couch with her laptop open. She hadn't meant for the video to get that much attention. At least, that's what she told herself. She hadn't expected the backlash. She definitely hadn't expected someone from the local paper to email her asking for a statement. Her hands hovered over the keyboard, but she didn't type anything. She hadn't told anyone, not even her husband, what she had recognized yesterday. She had told herself it was instinct, a protective reflex, but it was more than that. That little girl, Lily. The moment Susan had seen her up close, something had clicked. A face from a photo, years ago. A memory that came back too fast and too hard. She got up and went to her closet, pulled down a box from the top shelf. Inside were old letters, some newspaper clippings, and a single photo of a young girl holding a baby. She knew it. She knew who Lily was, or at least who her biological mother had been. Susan sat back down and stared at the photo. Her sister Kendra, smiling on the hospital bed, the baby cradled in her arms. That baby had been adopted after Kendra's overdose. Susan had never forgiven herself for not stepping in, not trying harder. She told herself she had no legal rights, no power, no standing, that the system had made the decision for her. But now the past had walked right up her street, holding hands with a woman she didn't know. And instead of knocking on the door and introducing herself, she called the cops. But the truth was already spreading, and this time it wasn't hers to control. It didn't take long before the story outgrew the neighborhood. By Tuesday morning, the video had hit Twitter, then Facebook, then Reddit. A popular page that highlights racial profiling incidents picked it up, reposted it with a sharp caption. She had adoption papers in her bag, just to walk with her daughter. Let that sink in. Within hours, it had over 300,000 views. People were angry, but not just about the call, about the assumption, about the pattern, about how normal this had become. Denise's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. She got messages from strangers, journalists, old college classmates she hadn't heard from in years. Her job called and told her to take the rest of the week off if she needed it. Even the school principal sent a message. Saw the video. I just want you to know that we support you and Lily. If there's anything we can do, let us know. Denise sat in her car outside the grocery store, watching the video again. Watching herself stay calm, watching Lily fidget beside her, holding her arm like it was a rope that could save her from something unseen. That wasn't parenting. That was survival. She didn't cry. She'd already gone through that stage years ago, when the adoption process made her justify her motherhood in 10,000 different ways. But she felt something hard settling inside her. Not bitterness, not anger. Something colder, tighter, like part of her had just shut the lights off. That evening, a local TV crew reached out. She didn't say yes, but she didn't say no either. Back on Evergreen Street, Susan Whitmore sat on her front porch, watching as neighbors drove past slower than usual. No one waved. Someone had left a sticky note on her mailbox earlier. No signature. It just said, "You owe them an apology." Susan's husband, Mark, didn't say much. He knew something deeper was going on, but Susan hadn't told him everything. She didn't explain the photo, the box in the closet, the connection. She just kept staring at the video, over and over, watching herself pace in the background, watching the police arrive, watching Lily clutch the folder Denise handed over. It was like watching herself from the outside, like someone else had made the call. But she knew better. The memory of her sister's funeral came back suddenly, that tiny white casket, the sealed court documents, the social worker telling her the child had been placed with a family who was ready, stable, capable, words that cut. She had never even learned the adoptive mother's name, until now. Susan got up from the porch and walked back into the house. She opened her email, stared at the blinking cursor on a message she'd started to write 3 times and deleted. To Denise Walker. Subject: I think we need to talk. Still, she didn't hit send. Across the street, Denise was in the living room reading a book while Lily colored at the coffee table. Her daughter was humming again, that same tune from the other day. It was off-key and cheerful, and Denise couldn't stop looking at her, couldn't stop wondering, what if I hadn't had those papers? What if I'd raised my voice? What if the officer had been someone else? The questions rolled in like waves. She picked up her phone, opened her notes app, started typing out what she'd say if she decided to go public. If she decided to speak not just for herself, but for every parent who'd ever had to prove their love because someone else couldn't wrap their head around it. The words came slow, but they came. Honest, simple, clear. But the next knock on her door wouldn't be from the press. It would be from someone she never expected to see in person. The knock was soft, almost polite, like whoever was on the other side wasn't sure they had the right house. Denise opened the door halfway, expecting a reporter or maybe a curious neighbor. What she saw instead was Susan Whitmore, alone, clutching a manila envelope like it was a shield. They stood there for a second, both unsure who should speak first. "Hi," Susan said, her voice quieter than Denise had ever heard it. I'm the one who called the police. I think you already knew that." Denise said nothing, not at first. Susan looked down. "I came to apologize, not to defend myself, just to tell you I was wrong." Denise didn't open the door wider, but she didn't close it either. "Is that all you came to say?" Susan hesitated, then held out the envelope. "There's something I need to explain, something about Lily." That stopped everything. Denise's face didn't change, but her hand reached out slowly and took the envelope. She opened it. Inside was an old photo, grainy but clear, a young woman in a hospital gown holding a newborn. She looked tired but proud. "That's my sister," Susan said. "Her name was Kendra." Denise glanced up. She was Lily's birth mother. The silence in that moment wasn't awkward, it was electric. "She passed away 6 years ago. Overdose," Susan continued. "I wasn't allowed to take the baby. They said I didn't meet the requirements. I didn't fight it the way I should have. And when they told me she'd been adopted, I just let it go. I didn't even try to find out where she went." She looked down at her hands. "But when I saw her yesterday, your daughter, I knew. I recognized her face and I panicked. Not because I thought you were dangerous. I just, She shook her head. "I don't know. It was selfish. I made it about me, and I hurt both of you." Denise held the photo in her hand for a long time. The girl in it looked young, maybe 20. She'd never seen Lily's biological mother before, and now this stranger, this woman who'd humiliated her in front of her child, was standing in her doorway, claiming to be family. "She looks like Lily," Denise said, not meaning to say it out loud. "I know," Susan replied. Denise finally stepped aside. "Come in." They sat at the kitchen table. Denise didn't offer coffee. She just listened. Susan told her everything about her sister, about the addiction, about the custody battle, the social worker who told her the baby had been placed with a good family, how she'd tried to forget. "I thought I'd be okay, just not knowing. But when I saw her, all that came rushing back." "And calling the cops was your first instinct?" Denise asked. Susan looked away. "I think I was jealous, or scared, or maybe just ashamed. I don't know what's worse." Denise studied her. "You didn't recognize me. You recognized her, and you still assumed the worst." Susan nodded. "I did." There was a long pause. "You could have knocked. You could have said something." "I know." Denise took a breath. "You don't get to have her back. Whatever connection you had to her before, she's mine now. I'm her mother." "I'm not trying to take her," Susan said quickly. "I just wanted to tell the truth." Denise looked at her, eyes sharp but steady. "Then tell it where it counts. You made this public. Make the apology just as loud." Susan swallowed hard. "Okay. And if Lily asks about you, about her birth family, I'll tell her what's appropriate. But I won't let her get dragged into any more drama. This is her life, not a headline." "I understand," Susan said, and for once she meant it. She stood up slowly. Thank you for letting me say it. And I'm sorry for all of it. Denise didn't reply right away. She walked Susan to the door. You don't get points for showing up late, she said, but at least you showed up. Susan gave a small nod, then turned and walked down the steps, the envelope now empty, her guilt a little lighter. But Denise knew this wasn't the end, because the story had already taken on a life of its own. And now the world was watching. By Friday morning, Denise's name was in the headlines. Mother accused of kidnapping her own child speaks out. Caught on camera, racial bias or honest mistake. Adoptive mom confronts caller in viral police video. She hadn't planned to talk to anyone, but when a local news anchor reached out and asked if Denise wanted to say something in her own words, she agreed. Not for the clicks, not for the comments, for Lily. The interview was filmed in her backyard. No microphones clipped to her shirt. Just a camera on a tripod and a woman named Shelby who let Denise talk without interrupting. I didn't want to do this, Denise said to the lens. I just wanted to be her mom. But when people think they can decide who belongs based on what they see, or what they think they see, someone has to say something. She paused, glancing toward the house. Lily was inside with Monique playing Uno. People ask me why I carry adoption papers everywhere I go, why I feel the need to be prepared. It's because of moments like that. Because people see us walking down the street and think, it doesn't add up. She looked directly at the camera. My daughter's not a puzzle piece that has to fit your picture of what a family looks like. She's my child. That's all that should matter. The clip aired that evening, and by the next morning, Denise's phone was full again. But this time, it was different. Strangers sent messages of support, parents of adopted kids, transracial families, teachers, social workers. Thank you for speaking. You said what so many of us are scared to say. Across the street, Susan watched the interview twice, then once more with the volume up. She didn't cry. She didn't rage. She just sat there, feeling something she hadn't felt in a long time, quiet accountability. The next day, she made her post. No excuses, no disclaimers, just a simple caption. I was the one who made the call. I assumed something awful, and I was wrong. That's mine to own. To Denise and Lily, I'm sorry. I hope others learn from my mistake. It didn't go viral, but it didn't need to. People saw it. Her neighbors saw it. The same ones who'd kept walking past her house with side eyes and silence. The apology didn't fix everything. It didn't erase what happened, but it mattered. At school on Monday, Lily came home with a drawing she made in class. Stick figures, one tall, one small, both smiling, standing under a sun with squiggly rays. On the back, she'd written, "Me and Mom walking home." Denise stuck it on the fridge with a magnet shaped like a pineapple. I like how I look in this, she said, ruffling Lily's hair. You look like a superhero, Lily said proudly. Denise smiled. That's exactly what I was going for. She turned back to the fridge, eyes resting on the picture. For the first time in days, her shoulders dropped. A bit. But outside that front door, the world still had a lot to learn. A week after the video went viral, the neighborhood felt different. People who used to walk past Denise with polite nods started stopping to say hello. A couple of parents from Lily's school dropped off handwritten cards. One even left a bouquet of sunflowers and a note that said, "We see you, we're sorry." Denise didn't need the flowers, but she appreciated the effort. Still, she wasn't looking for validation. She just wanted space to live, to walk down the street with her child without becoming someone's suspicion, to shop for cereal without someone squinting at her, trying to solve a math problem that wasn't theirs to do. One evening, she and Lily were back at Nash Square Park. Same old picnic blanket, same park bench nearby, same squirrel making rounds looking for handouts. Lily tossed a peanut toward the tree and looked up at her mom. Is that the same squirrel from last time? Pretty sure it is, Denise said, stretching her legs out. Lily was quiet for a second. Then she asked the question Denise had been expecting. Why did the police come that day? Denise looked at her daughter. Not a baby anymore. Not completely, but old enough to start noticing when the world treated them different. She reached over, smoothed Lily's hair back from her face, because someone didn't understand who we are. And instead of asking questions or saying hello, they made a choice that scared us both. Lily frowned. That was mean. Yeah, Denise said, but some people don't mean to be mean. They just don't know better yet. Will they learn? I hope so. But what matters most is that you know who you are and who I am, and that we're a team, always. Lily leaned against her mom's shoulder. We're a good team. Denise kissed the top of her head. The best. Across the street from the park, Susan Whitmore stood by the curb. She had come alone, without fanfare, without an invitation. She watched them from a distance for a few moments, then started walking over, slow, cautious. Denise saw her. She didn't stand up, didn't wave, but she didn't turn away either. Susan approached, stopping a few feet from the blanket. I'm not here to bother you, she said. I just wanted to say something to her, if that's all right. Denise looked down at Lily. You remember Miss Susan from the neighborhood? Lily nodded. Susan crouched slightly, keeping her voice soft. I made a mistake, a really big one. I thought something bad when there was nothing bad at all. And I hurt your mom. I'm sorry. Lily looked at her for a second, then turned to Denise. Denise gave a small nod. It's okay to say thank you. That's all you have to do. Thank you, Lily said politely. Susan stood up. You're doing a great job, she said to Denise. I mean that. Denise nodded once. Goodbye, Susan. It wasn't warm, but it was something. Susan walked away. That night, after Lily had gone to bed, Denise sat alone on the couch with her laptop. She opened a blank document. At the top, she typed, what it means to be a mother when the world tries to doubt you. Then she kept writing, slowly, honestly, because maybe, just maybe, her voice could help another mom like her. One who keeps adoption papers in her bag, not out of fear, but preparation. One who knows the ache of being questioned while simply loving out loud. Sometimes love isn't quiet. Sometimes love has to speak up. And if this story makes you stop before you make an assumption, if it makes you pause, ask, what if I'm wrong? Then maybe that's how things start to change. If you believe families don't have to match to be real, share this. Speak up. Say something. Because silence has never raised a child, but love has.